Close your eyes. Let me embrace you. Imagine for a moment that everything, absolutely everything you know about humanity's past, is just a thin, almost transparent film on the surface of a boundless ocean. Beneath it lie depths so dark and bottomless that modern science prefers not to look there. We're accustomed to thinking linearly: cave, hut, bronze, iron, steam, electricity. A beautiful straight line from ignorance to enlightenment, a convenient scheme for history textbooks. But what if this scheme is self-deception? What if buried in the sands of time, in the ocean depths, under layers of earth, lie technologies that would make our best engineers fall silent in astonishment? Tonight we journey where official history fears to tread, to stones impossible to lift, to knowledge that shouldn't have existed, to mysteries without answers. Get comfortable, turn off the lights. This will be a journey into the very heart of the forgotten. Official history loves simplicity. Everything in order, everything logical, from primitive to complex, step by step. But reality stubbornly refuses to fit into these frames. Across the planet, archaeologists find things that simply shouldn't be there. Stones processed with precision we only achieved with the invention of the laser. Astronomical calculations requiring centuries of continuous observation. Metallurgical processes whose secrets we only unraveled yesterday. Each such discovery is a crack in the wall of the familiar world. First small, almost invisible, but when there are too many cracks, the wall begins to crumble. And then arises the question that haunts millions. What if we understand nothing at all about who our ancestors were? Let's start with the most obvious, with what's impossible to ignore. In the Egyptian desert, under the scorching sun, stands a structure that mocks all laws of common sense. The Great Pyramid of Giza. 2.5 million stone blocks, some weigh more than 60 tons, more than a modern battle tank. Built, according to official history, in just 20 years. Let's do the math. If working around the clock without a single day off, you'd need to lay one block every 2.5 minutes. A block weighing several tons, cut somewhere in a quarry, transported dozens of kilometers, lifted to height, installed with millimeter precision. 2.5 minutes for all this, 20 years straight. This sounds not just incredible, it sounds impossible. But it's not only about construction speed. The pyramid's base is an almost perfect square. The margin of error is less than 15 centimeters on a side 230 meters long. Try drawing such a square in your yard with modern instruments. Now imagine doing this in the desert. Without GPS, without laser levels, without computer calculations. Only copper tools, ropes, and the human eye. The pyramid's sides are oriented to the cardinal directions with more than 99% accuracy. To achieve such precision requires deep knowledge of astronomy and geodesy, knowledge that the ancient Egyptians, according to the official version, couldn't have possessed. Now come closer. Look at the stones themselves. Between blocks, you can't slip a knife blade. No mortar, no cement, just stone to stone. Perfectly fitted surfaces of several square meters each. Each block processed so that it rests on the previous one with accuracy to fractions of a millimeter. And this isn't one block, not 10, not 100. 2.5 million pieces. Official science proposes the theory of wooden sledges, sand ramps, and armies of slaves. But when modern engineers tried to test this theory in practice, they encountered an insurmountable problem. A ramp gentle enough to raise multi-ton blocks to a height of 140 meters would require more material than the pyramid itself. Where is this material? Where did such a colossal volume of sand and stone disappear? And another detail usually overlooked: copper tools. Try scratching granite with copper. Granite has a hardness of 7 on the Mohs scale. Copper is 3. It's like trying to saw steel with a piece of butter. But the Egyptians didn't just scratch granite. They cut perfect blocks from it, polished to mirror shine, drilled holes with such speed and precision that modern diamond drills would envy. In some granite blocks, traces of spiral grooves were found inside the holes, exactly like those left by modern high-speed drills. Only this was done 4,500 years ago. The Great Pyramid isn't alone in its mystery. Around it lies an entire complex of structures, each a separate puzzle. The Valley Temple is built from granite blocks weighing more than 200 tons each. These pink monoliths were brought from the Aswan quarries 800 kilometers up the Nile. How? The pressure of such cargo would break any wooden vessel, and the joints between the temple's blocks are so thin they can barely be seen with the naked eye. No mortar. Stone to stone, 200 tons to 200 tons, joined so tightly that even air doesn't penetrate between them. But Egyptian pyramids are only the tip of the iceberg. Let's travel to another continent, high in the Andes. At an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, in the rarefied air where it's hard to breathe, lie the ruins of Pumapunku. And here begins true madness. Imagine stone blocks of andesite and diorite, igneous rocks of incredible hardness. Blocks weighing from 100 to 180 tons each, transported from quarries located dozens of kilometers away through mountainous terrain. This alone is impossible. But the most astonishing thing isn't the weight or distance. The most astonishing is how these blocks are processed. Surfaces polished to mirror shine, corners perfectly right, exactly 90 degrees, with precision that can only be measured with special instruments. Holes drilled through the hardest stone, and the walls of these holes are so smooth it seems they were made with a modern diamond drill at high speed. Grooves cut with such precision that the edges are sharp as a razor's edge. You stand before these stones and understand something here is fundamentally wrong. This doesn't look like the work of people with primitive tools. This looks like industrial production, as if someone used milling machines, laser cutting, precision equipment 1,000 years before all this was invented. Official archaeology offers the standard answer: percussion processing, stone on stone. But try it yourself. Take a diorite hammer and try to process a diorite block. You'll pound for days, weeks, months, and at best get a rough, uneven surface covered with impact marks. But on Pumapunku blocks, there are no impact marks, only perfectly smooth, polished surfaces and precise geometric forms. Some blocks connect through the most complex systems of locks and grooves cut in 3 dimensions. Imagine a 3-dimensional puzzle of stone, where each element weighs 100 tons and must fit perfectly in place. The slightest error, and everything collapses. But thousands of years ago, someone assembled this puzzle, and assembled it so that even earthquakes couldn't completely destroy it. Traces on some blocks look like circular saw cuts, perfectly parallel lines, evenly spaced, as if someone ran a disc saw with diamond coating over the stone. Other stones show perforations intersecting at precise angles, geometry difficult to create even with modern equipment. Now let's dig even deeper. There exists a local legend that Pumapunku's builders possessed stone softening technology. Sounds like science fiction, but Spanish conquistadors recorded indigenous stories about plants capable of turning stone into a pliable mass like clay. Of course, no such plant has been found. But what if the legends are based on reality? What if there existed a chemical process allowing temporary alteration of stone's molecular structure, making it soft for processing? This would explain much. The perfect fitting of blocks, absence of tool marks, complex shapes impossible to cut mechanically. But there's no proof. Only stones that mock our understanding of the possible. Let's move to another part of the world. In Lebanon, in the city of Baalbek, stand the ruins of a Roman temple complex. The Romans built their temple on an already existing foundation they didn't create themselves. Why? Because the blocks of this foundation are so massive that even Roman engineers, the greatest builders of antiquity, couldn't understand how they were placed there. The Baalbek trilithon consists of 3 limestone blocks. Each weighs approximately 800 tons, not 80, 800. They're placed at a height of about 6 meters above ground, fitted to each other with precision that doesn't allow even a sheet of paper between them. For comparison, the heaviest cranes in the world can lift a maximum of 1,000 tons, and only under ideal conditions, with careful preparation, mathematical calculations, hydraulics. And in the quarry near Baalbek lies another block known as the Stone of the South. Its weight is estimated at 1,600 tons. It's partially cut from the rock, but was never transported, as if the project was suddenly stopped. Someone began cutting this colossal monolith, then abandoned the work and left. Why? What happened? How did the ancients move 800-ton blocks? Theories multiply. Wooden rollers, thousands of workers, lever systems. But no theory has been successfully demonstrated in practice. Attempts to reproduce similar feats using ancient techniques invariably fail, either requiring modern auxiliary equipment or proving altogether impossible. What's particularly puzzling is the global nature of this phenomenon. Megalithic structures with incomprehensible construction technology are scattered worldwide. In England stands Stonehenge, with its 50-ton sarcens transported 30 kilometers. In Peru, the walls of Sacsayhuaman, where limestone blocks weighing more than 100 tons each are fitted to each other like a three-dimensional puzzle with no two identical pieces. In Japan, underwater structures contain blocks of several hundred tons cut with geometric precision. The pattern repeats everywhere. Ancient cultures separated by oceans and millennia all demonstrated the ability to work with stone on scales we can barely reproduce today. This suggests either there existed techniques we've lost, or human capabilities in antiquity were completely different. But more on that later. Now let's talk not about size and weight, but about precision, about the geometric accuracy of stone processing that shouldn't have existed thousands of years ago. In Egypt, in the ancient tombs of Saqqara, stone vases and bowls were found, carved from diorite, basalt, granite, materials of extreme hardness. But these aren't crude vessels hollowed out with primitive tools. These are works of art with perfect symmetry, thin walls, complex internal forms. Engineer Christopher Dunn studied these objects, conducted precise measurements. His conclusion shocked the archaeological community. These vases were manufactured on lathes. The symmetry is so perfect, it's only possible with mechanical rotation of the workpiece. Wall thickness in some places is less than a millimeter. The stone is so finely processed, it shows through to light. Internal cavities have shapes requiring a curved cutting tool capable of penetrating inside through a narrow neck. Try making this by hand, with stone of hardness 7 on the Mohs scale. One careless strike and all the work is destroyed. A crack will pass through the thin wall and months of labor go to dust. But these vases exist. Hundreds of them, found in tombs dated more than 4,000 years ago. The official explanation: patience and percussion processing. A master spends years pounding stone on stone, gradually forming the vessel. Abrasive sand is used for polishing, copper tubes for drilling. But experiments show this doesn't work. Results come out rough, uneven. Symmetry is violated. The surface is covered with processing marks. Nothing in common with the perfect, mirror-smooth ancient vases. Dunn suggests the Egyptians had access to mechanical lathes, possibly powered by water or muscle strength, but providing stable rotation and precise positioning of the cutting tool. A tool made from material harder than the stone being processed. What was this material? Iron appeared in Egypt much later. Bronze is too soft. It remains to assume either hardened alloys whose secret is lost, or something completely different. Traces on some stones resemble disc saw cuts, parallel, uniform grooves indicating use of a rotating cutting disc. The depth of cuts suggests high rotation speed and significant pressure. In diorite blocks, cylindrical holes with spiral grooves inside were found, exactly like those left by modern drills at high speeds. But such drills require high rotation speed, hard tips, cooling systems. All of this the ancient Egyptians couldn't have had, at least according to the official version. But what if the official version isn't complete? What if in antiquity there existed technologies we simply don't know about? Not necessarily electrical or mechanical in our understanding, perhaps based on principles we haven't yet discovered or have long forgotten. The absence of tools doesn't prove their non-existence. Metal is remelted, wood rots, knowledge is forgotten. Especially if this knowledge was accessible to a narrow circle of specialists, priestly castes, craft guilds. When civilization collapses, such specialized knowledge disappears first. Imagine a master teaching an apprentice secret craftsmanship. The process takes years. Then comes war, plague, famine. The master dies without transferring everything. The apprentice remembers part of the technique but doesn't understand the principles. Through a generation, only legends remain about great masters of the past who could do what's now impossible. This cycle has repeated in history many times. The recipe for Greek fire, the incendiary weapon of Byzantium, is lost forever. Damascus steel, whose blades could cut a falling silk scarf, is no longer produced by original technology. Roman concrete that withstood 2 millennia underwater was forgotten and rediscovered only in the 21st century. What else have we lost? How many technologies disappeared without a trace? Let's shift attention to another type of ancient mysteries, to knowledge that shouldn't have existed, to maps showing what was impossible to know, to astronomical precision requiring centuries of observation, to mathematical principles supposedly discovered much later. In 1513, Turkish Admiral Piri Reis created a world map using ancient sources. The map showed the coasts of Europe, Africa, America, a continent discovered by Columbus just 21 years earlier. But the strangest part wasn't this. The map depicted Antarctica's coast without ice, with topographic details of land hidden under a kilometer-thick ice sheet. Land we could only fully map in the 20th century using ice-penetrating radar. Antarctica was officially discovered in 1820, more than 300 years after Peary's map. And critically, the Antarctic coast has been covered in ice for at least 6,000 years. How is it possible for a 15th century map to show geographic features observable only when the continent was ice-free? Piri Reis himself left notes in the map's margins. He explained he used very ancient sources, some from the time of Alexander the Great, copying maps from maps, reproducing knowledge from the distant past whose meaning he didn't fully understand himself. And this isn't the only such map. The Oronteus Phineas map of 1531 shows all of Antarctica, with rivers, mountains, coastlines. All this coincides, surprisingly, with the real continent under the ice cover. Mercator's map of 1569 depicts Antarctica divided into 2 landmasses, a feature confirmed only by modern radar research. The accuracy of these maps extends beyond Antarctica. South America's coast on Peary's map is drawn with accuracy officially achieved only in the 18th century. Longitudes calculated with precision requiring chronometers, instruments invented only in 1736. Analysis shows these maps were created using spherical trigonometry and understanding of Earth's true shape, mathematics that supposedly didn't develop until the Renaissance. Moreover, the maps are compiled from a viewpoint suggesting aerial or space photography. Coastlines are drawn so accurately as if someone was looking at the planet from above. Where did this knowledge come from? One theory suggests the existence of an advanced maritime civilization in the last interglacial period, about 12,000 years ago, when sea levels were lower and Antarctica was ice-free. This hypothetical civilization mapped the entire world using sophisticated navigation techniques. Then came climatic cataclysms. Glaciers melted, ocean levels rose, civilization disappeared underwater or was destroyed by catastrophes. But the maps survived, copied again and again by later cultures, even as their origin was forgotten. Sounds incredible? Perhaps. But how else to explain maps showing continents in a state that hasn't existed for the last 6,000 years? Now let's move to the stars. Ancient civilizations were obsessed with the sky, and not just religiously, but scientifically. They tracked planetary movements with precision, requiring centuries of systematic observation, predicted eclipses, understood the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle caused by Earth's axial wobble. Stonehenge in England isn't just a pile of rocks. It's a sophisticated astronomical observatory built between 3,000 and 2,000 years before our era. It precisely marks solstices, equinoxes, extreme points of the lunar path. The 56 Aubrey holes in the outer circle could have been used as a primitive computer for predicting eclipses. Archaeologist Gerald Hawkins in the 1960s demonstrated that by moving stone markers in specific patterns, Stonehenge's builders could predict solar and lunar eclipses years in advance. This requires not just observation, but understanding of complex astronomical cycles, knowledge that accumulates across generations. But Stonehenge isn't unique. Worldwide, we find megalithic observatories with similar functions. Newgrange in Ireland, built about 5,000 years ago, has a passage allowing sunlight to enter only at dawn on the winter solstice. Light illuminates the inner chamber for exactly 17 minutes. The architectural precision is extraordinary. The 13 towers of Chanquillo in Peru form a solar observatory marking the sun's movement throughout the year with accuracy of 1 to 2 days. This is from 2,300 years ago. The Mayan observatory of Caracol has windows positioned to observe Venus at its extreme positions. The Maya were particularly obsessed with Venus. Their calendar accounted for its synodic period, 584 days, with accuracy to within a few hours. This requires observations spanning centuries and complex mathematical calculations. The Maya had no telescopes, no precise clocks, only naked vision, patience, and intellect. The ancient Egyptians knew that Sirius rises before the sun once a year, marking the Nile's flooding. The Sumerians identified 5 planets visible to the naked eye and tracked their movements, divided the sky into 12 zodiacal houses, a concept that survived millennia. Babylonian astronomers could predict planetary positions with error less than 1 degree. They understood the difference between stars and planets, knew about retrograde motion, compiled star catalogs numbering thousands of objects. All this without optical instruments, only observation, recording, analysis. Generation after generation, priests transmitted knowledge, added new observations, refined calculations, created a system of knowledge that in some aspects matched modern astronomy before the telescope's invention. But there's something even more puzzling. Certain ancient structures are encoded with mathematical constants that shouldn't have been known. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The ratio of height to base perimeter approximately equals pi. The golden ratio repeats in its proportions. Some researchers claim if you multiply the pyramid's height by 43,200, you get Earth's polar radius. Coincidence or encoded knowledge? Debates continue. Skeptics speak of selective data fitting, that in a sufficiently complex structure, you can always find numerical coincidences. But the quantity of such coincidences makes you think. Pi, the golden ratio, Earth's dimensions, the precession of equinoxes, all reflected in the pyramid's proportions. Stonehenge is encoded with lunar cycles. The 56 Aubrey holes correspond to a triple Saros cycle, the eclipse period. The positioning of stones marks the 18-year cycle of lunar extreme points. Mayan temples are oriented to the stars of Orion's belt, to Venus's rising, to solstice points corrected for precession. Their calendar is a marvel of mathematics, synchronizing the solar year, lunar month, Venus cycle, and mythological periods into a single system. Where did such mathematical sophistication come from? The traditional explanation is slow accumulation of empirical knowledge. The ancients observed, noticed patterns, recorded, transmitted. Century after century, knowledge grew. but some knowledge appears too early. The Sumerians used a sexagesimal number system, base 60, which is far more convenient for astronomical calculations than our decimal system. How did they think of this at civilization's very beginning? The Plimpton tablet, dated 1800 years before our era, contains the Babylonian method for calculating Pythagorean triples, 1,000 years before Pythagoras. Indian mathematicians used zero as a number and the concept of negative numbers centuries before these ideas appeared in Europe. Archimedes described principles that became the foundation of integral calculus. Aristarchus of Samos proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system 18 centuries before Copernicus. All this knowledge was lost. Archimedes' works survived only partially. Aristarchus's writings almost completely disappeared. Babylonian mathematics was forgotten. Indian achievements weren't recognized until recently. How much more knowledge was lost without a trace? How many brilliant minds of antiquity created theories, conducted experiments, made discoveries that then dissolved in the mist of time? This brings us to one of the most disturbing thoughts. What if progress isn't linear? What if humanity doesn't move in a straight line from ignorance to enlightenment, but rather oscillates like waves, rises and falls, periods of flourishing replaced by dark ages? Knowledge accumulates, then is lost. Civilizations rise, reach peaks, then collapse. History is full of examples of lost knowledge. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of ancient wisdom, destroyed. With it disappeared countless treatises on mathematics, astronomy, engineering, medicine, philosophy. We know of many works only because later authors referenced them, but the texts themselves vanished forever. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire led to the loss of enormous volumes of technological knowledge. Romans built aqueducts, roads, bridges, sewage systems, public baths. They used principles of civil engineering unsurpassed in Europe until the late Middle Ages. Their concrete, made with volcanic ash, was more durable than many modern analogs. The exact formula for Roman concrete was lost and rediscovered only in the 21st century through chemical analysis of ancient structures. For millennia, humanity couldn't reproduce what Romans considered ordinary building technology. In the Americas, Spanish conquistadors destroyed nearly all Mayan codices. Bishop Diego de Landa, in a fit of religious fervor, ordered all Mayan books he could find burned. Of thousands of codices that once existed, only 4 survived. These 4 surviving texts show the Maya possessed extraordinary astronomical knowledge, calculated synodic periods of planets with accuracy that astonishes modern astronomers, predicted eclipses centuries in advance. How much more knowledge was contained in the destroyed books we'll never know. The pattern repeats globally. Civilization reaches its peak, then collapses due to war, disease, climate change, resource depletion. Knowledge not fixed in durable forms or widely distributed disappears. Subsequent generations start over, often from scratch. Even in recent centuries, we've seen the loss of important knowledge. The technique of creating Stradivarius violins isn't fully understood despite a century of research. The secret of Damascus steel is lost. The method of producing Greek fire disappeared with the Byzantine Empire. If this can happen with relatively recent technologies, what about antiquity? How much knowledge was lost in cataclysms we don't even remember? Stop for a moment. I know what you're thinking now. This sounds like conspiracy theory, like pseudo-scientific fantasy. Ancient aliens, Atlantis, all this madness. But let's be honest. I'm not suggesting you believe in aliens or magic. I'm suggesting something far simpler and yet more revolutionary. What if our ancestors were smarter than we think? Not more technological, obviously they didn't have computers, but smarter in the sense of ability to think long-term, work with limited resources, create things designed for millennia. Smarter in understanding natural rhythms, astronomical cycles, material properties. We look at the past through the prism of our technological superiority. We see people without electricity, without machines, without internet, and automatically consider them primitive. But primitiveness is relative. A civilization capable of existing 1,000 years in harmony with the environment while creating monuments that outlive epochs. Perhaps it's wiser than us in some ways. We've existed for a few centuries of industrialization and already face ecological crisis, resource depletion, climate change. We build for a quarter, for a year, maximum for decades. The ancients built for centuries. Who's wiser? This isn't romanticizing the past. Ancient life was short, often brutal. Child mortality high, medicine primitive, social mobility almost non-existent. We wouldn't want to return there. But we can learn from what they did right. Their sustainability, ability to think centuries ahead, respect for natural cycles, understanding of civilization's fragility, and perhaps most importantly, their message encoded in stone and myths. This happened before. It can happen again. Nearly every ancient culture has a flood myth, a catastrophe that destroyed the previous world. The Epic of Gilgamesh, Biblical Noah, Greek Deucalion, Indian Manu, Chinese Gunyu, Aboriginal stories of rising waters, the Aztec myth of 5 worlds, each destroyed by cataclysm. The traditional interpretation is these are memories of local floods, exaggerated in retelling. But what if this is cultural memory of a real global event? Between 15,000 and 7,000 years ago, sea levels rose approximately 120 meters. Ice sheets melted, the ocean flooded coastal plains. Most ancient settlements were located along shores. When the sea rose, these places disappeared underwater. We're only beginning to explore submerged landscapes. Off the coast of India, structures were discovered in the Gulf of Kambat, dated to 9,000 years ago. In the Mediterranean, ancient ports are now underwater. Off Japan's coast is the Yonaguni Formation, whose age and origin are disputed. What if on these flooded coastlines existed complex societies, not necessarily super technological but developed, with trade, art, architecture, astronomical knowledge? And then came the water, and everything disappeared. Survivors retreated inland, carrying fragments of knowledge. Maps of the old world, copied again and again. Astronomical observations collected across generations. Stone processing techniques transmitted orally. Stories about what was lost. This would explain much. Maps showing ice-free Antarctica copied from sources created when the climate was different. The sudden appearance of developed civilizations in Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, not from nowhere, but as heirs of a lost tradition. Megalithic structures dated earlier than civilization's official beginning. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built 11,000 years ago. A temple complex of such complexity, it's hard to believe it was created by hunter-gatherers, unless these hunter-gatherers were survivors possessing knowledge from a previous epoch. Göbekli Tepe puzzles archaeologists. T-shaped pillars weighing up to 20 tons, decorated with sophisticated carvings of animals and abstract symbols. Organizing construction required coordinating hundreds of people, but this was 11,000 years ago, when humans were supposedly just beginning to experiment with agriculture. And then, after centuries of use, the complex was deliberately buried under tons of earth and rubble. Why? Archaeologists are at a loss. Perhaps religious reasons? Perhaps to preserve it from an approaching threat? Or possibly because the knowledge it represented became too dangerous to remember. The idea of a cataclysm that reset civilization recurs in ancient myths. Plato wrote of Atlantis, an advanced civilization existing 9,000 years before his time, destroyed in a single day by catastrophic earthquakes and floods. Traditional science dismisses Atlantis as philosophical allegory. But Plato claimed the story was told by Solon, who heard it from Egyptian priests, and that these priests had records going back millennia. What if there's a grain of truth in the myth? Not a literal sunken island continent, but memory of a real civilization lost in cataclysm. Perhaps Doggerland, the massive territory connecting Britain to Europe, flooded 8,000 years ago. Perhaps Sundaland, the continental shelf of Southeast Asia now underwater. Virtually every ancient culture speaks of a golden age, a time before the current era when people lived longer, knew more, were closer to the gods. Then, something happened, and the world was destroyed. Hindu yugas, Greek ages, Mesoamerican suns, Norse Ragnarok, all describe cycles of creation and destruction. Are these just mythological constructs, or distorted memory of real events? Survivors of catastrophe would transmit stories orally, then in symbols, writing. Stories would be distorted, mythologized, but the core would remain. A warning. This happened before. It can happen again. And in stone, structures built to survive the next cataclysm. Pyramids as markers, megaliths as libraries encoded in orientations, proportions, astronomical alignments. A message to the future. We were here, we knew, we tried to warn. Now let's dig into specific technological mysteries that modern science prefers to avoid. In 1936, German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig worked at the National Museum of Iraq when he stumbled upon a strange find. A clay vessel about 15 centimeters tall. Inside, a copper cylinder and an iron rod. The configuration of elements was identical to a modern galvanic battery. The copper cylinder sealed with asphalt. The iron showed traces of acid corrosion. When filled with electrolyte, vinegar, or grape juice, such a construction would generate approximately 1 volt of electricity. The object's dating places it between 200 years before our era and 200 of our era, the Parthian period. If ancient Persians used electricity 2,000 years ago, our understanding of technological progress goes to hell. Koenig suggested the Baghdad batteries were used for electroplating, applying thin layers of gold or silver to metal objects through electrochemical process. Findings of ancient artifacts from the region with incredibly thin, uniform coatings support this theory. Modern experiments showed replicas of Baghdad batteries indeed generate sufficient current for electroplating. But official archaeology is skeptical. They say there's insufficient contextual evidence. The object could have had religious purpose. The electrochemical effect is accidental. But the story of ancient electricity doesn't end in Baghdad. In the Dendera Temple in Egypt, there's a relief that has puzzled researchers for decades. The carving shows figures manipulating objects resembling giant lamps connected to wires. Inside the bulbous forms are wavy lines reminiscent of incandescent filaments. Wires connect the lamps to boxes resembling transformers. The official version is religious symbols. But electrical engineers who analyze the images point to disturbing similarities with electrical circuit diagrams. And here's what's strange. Many deep chambers inside Egyptian pyramids and temples show no soot on ceilings, no traces of smoke, carbon deposits. If torches or oil lamps were used for lighting, where are the burn marks? Maybe they used a system of mirrors directing sunlight. A theory academically acceptable, but practical experiments showed its limitations for deep labyrinths. Or perhaps some form of illumination without fire. Electrical. Knowledge of electrical phenomena in antiquity is documented. Thales of Miletus in the 6th century before our era described how rubbed amber attracts small objects, the first known record of static electricity. Romans knew about torpedo fish capable of generating electrical discharges. Some physicians used them for treatment. If the ancients understood these phenomena, it's reasonable to assume they might have tried to reproduce or use them. In South America, pre-Columbian artifacts demonstrate manufacturing sophistication, suggesting possible use of electrochemistry. Some objects have layers of different metals with microscopically uniform thickness, difficult to achieve without electrochemical control. Academic resistance to these ideas is understandable. Insufficient contextual evidence, absence of written documentation. But absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Much ancient knowledge was transmitted orally, restricted to priestly circles. Texts could have been lost in library fires. What makes the mystery of ancient electricity particularly captivating are its broader implications. If the ancients possessed basic electrochemical principles, what other applications did they develop? Communication at distance, artificial lighting, advanced metallurgical processes. The Baghdad batteries and Dendera reliefs may be the last fragments of knowledge that briefly shone in antiquity before being extinguished. Now let's move to an even stranger mystery, to the mechanism that changed everything we thought about ancient technological capabilities. In 1901, sponge divers in waters near the Greek island of Antikythera discovered remains of an ancient shipwreck. Among amphorae and bronze statues lay a corroded object. Initially ignored as a piece of rock, it proved to be the most sophisticated mechanical device of antiquity. The Antikythera mechanism, dated approximately to 100 years before our era, contains at least 30 bronze gears in a configuration so complex that nothing comparable appeared until medieval astronomical clocks, more than 1,000 years later. This is an analog computer for calculating and predicting astronomical positions and eclipses. The mechanism's complexity challenges everything we thought about the technological capabilities of the Hellenistic world. The device uses differential gears, a concept attributed to a 15th century inventor. Teeth cut with precision, requiring specialized tools. The mechanism predicted positions of the sun, moon, 5 planets. It included corrections for irregularities in lunar motion. It could predict eclipses using the Saros cycle, 18 years and 11 days. It had a dial divided into 223 sections, allowing foresight of solar and lunar eclipses years in advance. Inscriptions on the mechanism, more than 3,400 symbols of ancient Greek text, a user manual explaining how to operate the device, and what calculations it performs. The sophistication of technical language indicates there existed an entire tradition of creating scientific instruments in the ancient world. The Antikythera mechanism is possibly the only surviving specimen. The question haunts historians. If the Greeks could build something so complex, what other technologies did they possess? Mechanical devices are fragile, bronze corrodes, gears oxidize. How many other mechanisms lie on the bottom of the Mediterranean, or were melted down without recognition of value? Modern attempts to reconstruct the mechanism revealed its true advancement. The teeth are triangular, not square, a characteristic that reduces wear and improves efficiency, a design modern engineers only rediscovered in the 20th century. The three-dimensional arrangement of gears on multiple levels demonstrates sophisticated understanding of spatial mechanics, all in a wooden box the size of a shoebox. Mastery of miniaturization associated with 15th century Swiss watchmaking. The Antikythera mechanism shows that progress can be fragile. Extraordinary knowledge can be completely lost when civilization collapses. The Greeks who built the mechanism possessed principles of mechanical engineering, mathematical astronomy, precision metallurgy, and then this knowledge disappeared. For more than 1,000 years after the Hellenistic world's collapse, no one in Europe could build anything comparable. The knowledge was lost, skills forgotten. Humanity had to reinvent what it once knew. This is a quiet but powerful reminder. Progress isn't inevitable or permanent. Civilizations can reach extraordinary heights, then fall into darkness, leaving only oxidized fragments as proof of their capabilities. Now let's talk about metallurgy, about alloys and metal processing that modern science cannot fully explain. In Delhi, India, rises an iron pillar defying all known laws of corrosion. Erected more than 15 centuries ago, this pillar, 7 meters tall and weighing 6 tons of pure iron, resists rust in ways metallurgy cannot explain. Despite Delhi's monsoons, extreme humidity, centuries of climate variation, the pillar shows only minimal oxidation. Modern iron structures in the same conditions begin rusting within decades. This one has stood 16 centuries. The chemical composition is astonishing. Approximately 98% pure iron, with traces of phosphorus around 1%. This purity is remarkable for the 5th century, but most intriguing is how the phosphorus is distributed. During the forging process, it migrated to the surface, where it formed a protective layer, acting as a shield against oxidation. The layer is self-renewing, creating material that improves with time. The pillar's manufacture presents another mystery. To create such a large piece of iron in the 5th century, Indian blacksmiths had to forge between 5 and 10 to 100 smaller pieces, then weld them in a hot state. This requires maintaining temperatures around 1000 degrees Celsius while simultaneously hammering the metal to fuse the parts without creating weak points. The level of temperature control, coordination, metallurgical understanding suggests an extraordinarily sophisticated iron-working tradition. The Delhi pillar isn't the only example of impossible ancient metallurgy. In the British Museum resides the Lycurgus cup, a Roman vessel from the 4th century of our era with a puzzling optical property. It changes color depending on light direction. When light passes through the glass, the cup shines ruby red. When reflected, it appears jade green. This effect is caused by nanoparticles of gold and silver dispersed in the glass at specific concentrations and sizes, between 5 and 100 nanometers. The Romans created nanotechnology 16 centuries before the invention of electron microscopes. Though they achieved this probably accidentally, the fact they could reproduce the effect suggests empirical control of processes they didn't formally understand. In South America, pre-Columbian cultures possessed metallurgical techniques we've only recently begun to understand. Tumbaga, an alloy of gold and copper, was processed through surface depletion, removing copper from outer layers, leaving a surface of nearly pure gold over a harder alloy core. The process requires knowledge of organic acid chemistry, precise temperature control. The Inca produced arsenic bronze, an alloy technically superior to tin bronze in certain proportions. Arsenic bronze is stronger than tin bronze with a lower melting point, making it easier to cast. But arsenic is toxic. Its fumes during smelting kill metallurgists. How did the Inca protect themselves? Did they use primitive respirators, ventilation systems, or simply sacrifice craftsmen's health for the technology? We don't know. Platinum melts at 1768 degrees Celsius, too high for ancient furnaces. However, pre-Columbian artifacts contain platinum elements fused with gold. Modern research shows they used powder metallurgy technique, mixing platinum powder with gold, then heating to temperature sufficient to sinter particles without fully melting the platinum. This is a process Europeans mastered only in the 19th century, yet somewhere in Colombia's jungles 1,000 years ago, a craftsman already knew how to do this. Damascus steel remains legend. Blades from Damascus were famous for characteristic wavy patterns on the surface and ability to hold an incredibly sharp edge. Stories tell of swords cutting falling silk scarves or slicing through steel armor while maintaining sharpness. The secret was lost in the 18th century when sources of original ore were depleted. Modern analysis shows Damascus steel contained carbon nanotubes formed naturally during forging due to unique ore composition and specific processing techniques. Carbon nanotubes provided extraordinary strength and flexibility. Ancient blacksmiths created material we could produce intentionally only in the late 20th century. Alchemy, the predecessor of modern chemistry, is often dismissed as pseudoscience obsessed with turning lead into gold. But alchemists accumulated vast knowledge about chemical processes, distillation, crystallization, reactions of metals and acids. Many of their records are encoded in symbols and metaphors, partly to guard secrets, partly because chemical processes were perceived through the prism of mysticism. But behind the symbolism lay real techniques. Processes for purifying metals, producing acids, creating pigments, making glass. When alchemy transformed into chemistry, Much practical knowledge was forgotten, considered superstition. Medieval cathedral stained glass, especially red glass, contains colloidal gold in specific concentrations. The craftsmen didn't understand nanoparticles, but empirically knew that adding certain amounts of gold to molten glass created rich red color that wouldn't fade for centuries. This knowledge was partially lost. Some shades of 19th century stained glass cannot be precisely reproduced by modern methods because exact proportions and techniques are forgotten. Ancient metallurgy isn't just about forging swords and tools. It's profound understanding of materials, their properties, ways to manipulate them at a level that seems impossible without scientific theory. But the ancients worked empirically. They observed, experimented, memorized, transmitted. Across generations, they accumulated knowledge not written in formulas, but living in craftsmen's hands. When a master died without fully transmitting knowledge, part disappeared forever. This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of ancient technologies, to how much was lost and how easily it happens. Civilization is fragile. It seems progress is inevitable, that accumulated knowledge will be passed forward. But history shows the opposite. Collapse can be swift and complete. Invasion, epidemic, climatic catastrophe. And within one generation, complex societies crumble. Survivors are busy finding food, shelter, protecting from chaos. Books burn, scrolls rot, masters die before training apprentices, and knowledge disappears. The Late Bronze Age collapse around 1200 years before our era is a vivid example. Within several decades, thriving civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean collapsed. Mycenaean Greece, the Hittite Empire, Egyptian New Kingdom weakened. Coastal city-states of the Levant destroyed. Trade networks severed. Literacy nearly disappeared. Greece entered dark ages lasting 4 centuries. Writing forgotten. Monumental construction ceased. Population declined. Survivors retreated to subsistence farming. Everything requiring specialization, complex metallurgy, long-distance trade, administrative systems, disappeared. When Greece emerged from the Dark Ages, it didn't remember its Mycenaean past. The Cyclopean walls of Mycenae seemed built by giants. People didn't believe their ancestors could lift such stones. The Trojan War, a real historical event, became myth, populated by gods and heroes, because the truth was lost. If such advanced societies can forget their own history within a few centuries, what about more ancient times? How many cycles of rise and fall could have occurred before we began recording history? Each time civilization collapses, knowledge is lost. Sometimes, some survives in simplified form, transmitted orally. But details, critically important techniques, theoretical foundations, these disappear first. Imagine a library, not Alexandria, just an ordinary city library. War, fire, earthquake. The building collapses. A few books survive, randomly scattered in the rubble. The next generation finds text fragments without context, tries to decipher, understand. Some ideas are reconstructed, but most remain mystery. This happened again and again in history. Medieval monks copied Roman texts without understanding half the terms, preserved words, but meaning escaped. Arab scholars translated Greek works, trying to restore lost knowledge. Much was saved, but how much disappeared irretrievably? When Europeans rediscovered ancient texts in the Renaissance, it triggered revolution. But these were only fragments of what existed. Of 90 plays by Aeschylus, 7 survived. Of 123 by Sophocles, also 7. Archimedes' works survived partially through Arabic translations. The writings of many philosophers, scientists, engineers are known only through other authors' references. The texts themselves are lost. This is written knowledge, fixed on durable material, protected by scribes. But how many techniques, how much knowledge existed only in oral tradition, transmitted master to apprentice? When the chain broke, everything disappeared without trace. Modern society seems protected from such knowledge loss. We have digital archives, internet, billions of copies of information. But digital data is fragile in its own way. It requires constant power supply, working infrastructure, compatible devices. Try opening a file from 30 years ago. Often you need emulators of obsolete software. Formats become outdated, media degrades, hard drives fail. Cloud services depend on companies that can go bankrupt. In case of global catastrophe, electromagnetic pulse, catastrophic solar storm, power grid collapse, digital information could disappear instantly. But stone remains. The Great Pyramid has stood 4,500 years and can stand as many more. This is a message in stone more durable than any digital archive. Perhaps the ancients understood this. They built not only for themselves but for the future. They knew catastrophes happen, knowledge is lost, new generations will need reminders of what was possible. Pyramids, megaliths, temples aligned to the stars. These aren't just tombs or places of worship. These are time capsules, encoded messages, libraries in stone. Their orientation records astronomical knowledge. Their proportions contain mathematical constants. Their scale demonstrates technological capabilities. Their very existence is testimony that here was a civilization that could create wonders. And perhaps a warning. We were great, and we fell. Don't think you're safe. This happened before. It can happen again. Now let's talk about knowledge that doesn't fit conventional frameworks. About maps that shouldn't exist. About navigation across oceans considered impossible. About transoceanic contacts millennia before official discoveries. We already discussed Piri Reis and Orontius Phineus maps, but they're part of a larger pattern. In the 16th century, when European explorers were just beginning to systematically map the world, maps appeared of astonishing accuracy, clearly based on more ancient sources. Mercator's map of 1569 shows Antarctica not as a solid mass, but divided by a strait into two large islands. This feature was confirmed only by mid-20th century radar research penetrating through the kilometer-thick ice. Under the ice cover indeed runs a deep strait, effectively making Antarctica two large islands connected by ice. Mercator couldn't have known this. No one in the 16th century could. But someone knew when the original maps he was copying were created. The Buach map of 1739 depicts Antarctica completely ice-free, showing two separate continental masses and a waterway between them. This wasn't known until the 20th century. Philippe Buach created the map based on ancient sources. Not understanding what he was depicting, he drew what he saw on old maps, reproducing knowledge whose origin he couldn't explain. The standard explanation is coincidence, artistic license, misinterpretation of data. But when coincidences become too numerous, when multiple maps from different sources show the same impossible details, the explanation begins to sound unconvincing. Charles Hapgood, professor of history of science, devoted years to studying these maps. His conclusion? They're based on very ancient sources, created by a civilization with advanced navigational and cartographic capabilities, a civilization existing before history's official beginning. Hapgood sent analysis of Piri's map to the United States Air Force. The response confirmed the lower part of the map shows the coastline of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica, with accuracy that appears to correspond to seismographic profiles made by the Swedish-British Antarctic expedition in '59. This implies the coastline was mapped when it was ice-free. Official science rejected Hapgood's theory. There's no archaeological evidence of a global maritime civilization 12,000 years ago. No ruins of ports, shipyards, navigational instruments. But absence of evidence is understandable if this civilization was coastal. When sea levels rose 120 meters, coastal settlements ended up underwater. Underwater archaeology is in its infancy. The oceans cover more than 70% of the planet, and most of the seafloor is unexplored. What lies on continental shelves flooded 10,000 years ago. we're beginning to find clues. Off India's coast in the Gulf of Kambat, structures were discovered at 40 meters depth, geometric forms, possible remains of walls, buildings. Artifacts raised from the site were carbon dated to 9,500 years ago. This is controversial because it places an advanced civilization in India a millennium before the official beginning of Harappan culture. Off Japan's coast is the Yonaguni Monument, a massive underwater structure with terraces, straight edges, 90-degree angles. Debate rages whether it's natural formation or artificial. Geologists point out that sandstone can break along natural planes, creating rectilinear forms, but proponents of artificial origin note details: steps, pathways, positioned stones difficult to explain by natural processes. If Yonaguni is artificial, it was built when the site was above sea level, more than 10,000 years ago. In the Bahamas, the underwater formation of Bimini Road, a line of massive stone blocks stretching half a kilometer along the ocean floor. The blocks are rectangular, laid in orderly fashion like a paved road or pier. Officially, it's natural formation of beach rock cracking along regular lines. But some blocks show signs of processing, positioned too neatly to be entirely natural. Divers report columns, cornerstones, structures buried deeper under the sand. If these are remains of an ancient road or port, they date to when sea levels were lower, again, more than 10,000 years ago. The Mediterranean Sea holds dozens of submerged cities. Pavlopetri off Greece's coast, a complete Bronze Age settlement underwater with streets, buildings, tombs dated 5,000 years, flooded by earthquake. Heraklion and Canopus off Egypt's coast, great ports that disappeared beneath the waves. Statues, temples, ships, artifacts have been found. These are known cities mentioned in texts. How many unknown cities lie deeper from pre-literate epochs? Each year, underwater archaeologists find new sites. Technology improves. Sonar penetrates deeper. Robots explore previously inaccessible depths. Gradually, we're uncovering what hides beneath the water. But let's return to navigation. Transoceanic voyages officially began with European explorations of the 15th century. Before this, oceans were considered insurmountable barriers, but evidence suggests the ancients crossed them long before Columbus. Traces of cocaine and tobacco were found in Egyptian mummies. Cocaine and tobacco are New World plants that didn't exist in Africa or Asia until the 16th century. How did they get into Egyptian tombs 3,000 years ago? The traditional explanation is sample contamination, testing errors. But tests were repeated by independent laboratories and confirmed. Some scholars propose there existed Old World plants with similar alkaloids, now extinct. But this is speculation without evidence. Cocaine is a specific alkaloid of the coca plant native to the Andes. Tobacco, nicotine, unique to the Americas. The simplest explanation is transoceanic contact. Egyptians traded with civilizations having access to these plants, or Egyptian sailors themselves crossed the Atlantic. Sounds incredible. Egyptian vessels, as believed, weren't ocean-going. But Thor Heyerdahl proved otherwise. In 1970, he built Ra-2, a papyrus boat based on ancient Egyptian designs. Sailing from Morocco, the crew successfully crossed the Atlantic, reaching Barbados in 57 days. Papyrus, considered unsuitable for ocean voyages, held up. The journey demonstrated ancient vessels could cross oceans. The technology existed. In South America, artifacts were found indicating transoceanic contact. Olmec stone heads depict faces with African features, broad noses, full lips. The Olmecs were the first great Mesoamerican civilization, flourishing from 1200 to 400 years before our era. Why do their colossal sculptures show African physiognomy? The traditional explanation is artistic style, not portraits of real people. But the resemblance is striking. Sweet potato, a South American plant, was widespread in Polynesia before European contact. Linguistic analysis shows the Polynesian word for sweet potato, kumara, resembles the Quechua word kumar. Coincidence or evidence of contact? The Polynesians were antiquity's greatest navigators, crossing vast expanses of the Pacific in outrigger canoes, using stars, currents, bird behavior for navigation. They colonized islands from Hawaii to New Zealand, from Easter Island to Madagascar. Their navigational techniques were transmitted orally through practice, without written maps. Modern experiments have reproduced Polynesian voyages. Traditional canoes built with ancient methods successfully crossed thousands of kilometers of open ocean, navigating by stars. This proves transoceanic voyages were possible long before compasses, sextants, chronometers. It required only knowledge, skill, courage. If Polynesians could cross the Pacific, why not other ancient mariners? The Phoenicians, the Mediterranean's greatest sailors, possibly circumnavigated Africa around 600 years before our era, 2,000 years before Vasco da Gama. Herodotus recorded the story, but doubted it himself because the sailors reported the sun was to the north. An impossible phenomenon for Mediterranean sailors, but normal in the southern hemisphere. This detail, seeming incredible to Herodotus, actually confirms the account's truthfulness. Chinese junks crossed the Indian Ocean, reached East Africa long before Europeans. Admiral Zheng He, in the 15th century, commanded fleets with ships over 100 meters long, the largest wooden vessels ever built. These fleets could easily have reached America. Some researchers claim they did, pointing to Chinese artifacts found in California and legends of strangers from the West. The evidence is controversial, but the possibility isn't dismissed. Oceans weren't insurmountable barriers. They were highways for those possessing knowledge and courage. Ancient cultures living by coasts naturally became seafarers, followed fish, explored islands, traded with distant lands. Over time, knowledge accumulated about currents, winds, navigational stars. Maps were created, copied, transmitted. Not all voyages were successful. Many vessels were lost. But those that returned brought knowledge, making next journeys safer. A global network of trade and contacts could have existed long before official history. Not a centralized empire, but a scattered connection of coastal cultures exchanging goods, ideas, knowledge. When sea levels rose, this network disappeared underwater. Ports flooded, ships buried, maps lost. But fragments survived. Copies of maps transmitted through millennia, legends of lands beyond the sea, artifacts inexplicably on wrong continents. This brings us to one of the greatest mysteries, to Easter Island. The Moai, giant stone statues standing along the coast, looking inland. Nearly 900 statues, some over 10 meters tall, weighing up to 80 tons. Carved from volcanic tuff at the Rano Raraku quarry, then transported distances up to 18 kilometers, erected on platforms. Some crowned with cylindrical pukao, red stone hats weighing up to 12 tons. Easter Island is one of Earth's most isolated places. The nearest inhabited land is Pitcairn, 2,000 kilometers away. Chile, 3,500. A tiny speck of land in the Pacific's vastness. How did Polynesian navigators even find it? How did they transport people, plants, animals across thousands of kilometers of open sea in canoes? And why, once there, did they decide to dedicate colossal resources to creating hundreds of giant statues? Official history tells of Polynesian settlers arriving around 1200 of our era. They brought chickens, rats, plants. Over time, population grew, society became more complex. Clans competed, creating ever larger and more impressive moai, demonstrating status and connection to ancestors. But this led to ecological catastrophe. The island was covered with palm forests. Trees were cut down to create rollers and levers transporting statues. The forests disappeared. Without trees, soil eroded, crops declined, canoes couldn't be built for fishing. Society collapsed into war, famine, even cannibalism. By the time Europeans arrived in the 18th century, population had declined. Most moai were toppled. This is a cautionary tale about unsustainable resource use, how civilization can destroy itself. But there's a deeper mystery. The moai aren't just statues, they're specifically oriented. Their placement correlates with astronomical phenomena. Some platforms are aligned with solstices, equinoxes. This suggests the moai were part of a more complex system of astronomical observation, calendar, religious cosmology. Additionally, rongo-rongo tablets were discovered on the island, wooden boards covered with glyphs. This is the only known writing system in Polynesia before European contact. The glyphs are complex, showing people, animals, plants, abstract symbols. Decipherment has proven impossible. Everyone who could read rongo-rongo died without transmitting the knowledge. The language is lost. Only tablets remain, silent witnesses to knowledge we can never recover. Decipherment attempts continue, but without a bilingual text or living language speakers, it's nearly impossible. Rongo-rongo could have contained the island's history, chiefs' genealogies, religious texts, astronomical records, all lost. Another example of how easily knowledge disappears when transmission is interrupted. Easter Island is a microcosm of human civilization. Rise, flourishing, resource overexploitation, collapse. But also a message. The moai builders wanted to leave something eternal, something that would outlive them, and they succeeded. The statues stand 1,000 years later, mute witnesses to ambition and fall. Now stop. Linger a moment in silence. Because now we approach the most uncomfortable question, the one that makes the scientific community feel extremely uncomfortable. What if everything we've discussed, the impossible stones, lost technologies, ancient maps, transoceanic voyages, what if all this is just fragments of something much larger? What if there existed a global civilization before history's official beginning? Not mythical Atlantis, not aliens, just people, as intelligent as us, perhaps wiser in some aspects, reaching high levels of development millennia before we consider it possible, then destroyed by catastrophe so complete that only a few stones, a few maps, a few legends remain. This is called the lost civilization hypothesis, and it triggers fury in academic circles. Why? Because there's no direct evidence. No cities dated 12,000 years old. No written texts from that epoch. No skeletons, clothing, tools in sufficient quantity to confirm an advanced society's existence. Without this evidence, the theory remains speculation. But the absence of evidence has reasons. 12,000 years is an enormous span of time. Wood rots, metal corrodes, fabric decomposes, even stone erodes. Most ancient settlements were located along shores where there's water, fish, trade routes. When glaciers melted, sea levels rose 120 meters. Coastal plains flooded. Continental shelves, once land, now underwater. If an advanced civilization existed on these coastlines, its ruins are beneath the ocean, buried under tons of sediment. Underwater archaeology is only beginning. Oceans are vast, deep, difficult to access. We've explored less than 20% of the ocean floor. What lies in the unexplored 80%? Moreover, the cataclysm wasn't just gradual water rise. Between 12 and 11,000 years ago, dramatic climate changes occurred. The Younger Dryas, a period of sharp cooling lasting about 1,300 years. Temperatures dropped, glaciers returned, ecosystems collapsed. Then sudden warming, rapid ice melting, catastrophic floods, megafauna, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant sloths went extinct. Human populations sharply declined. This is the period known as the Pleistocene-Holocene boundary, the transition from Ice Age to modern climate. If civilization existed before this, it would have been destroyed. Some researchers suggest cosmic catastrophe. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis claims a comet or asteroid struck or exploded over North America, causing massive fires, ejecting dust into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight, triggering sharp cooling. Evidence is controversial. Findings of microscopic diamonds, soot, iridium anomalies in layers dated to that period. Critics point to dating problems, alternative explanations. Debates continue. But what's undeniable is something dramatic happened 12,000 years ago. Climate changed rapidly, species went extinct, human cultures transformed. Hunter-gatherers suddenly began experimenting with agriculture, founding permanent settlements, building temples like Göbekli Tepe. The traditional interpretation is agriculture developed independently in several places at approximately the same time by chance. But what if it's not coincidence? What if survivors of a previous civilization spread across the world, bringing knowledge of planting crops, domesticating animals, construction, astronomy? They couldn't restore the technologies of the lost world. Tools lost, materials inaccessible, specialists dead. But basic knowledge survived, and they transmitted it to new societies, helping them develop rapidly. This would explain the sudden appearance of complex structures like Göbekli Tepe, created supposedly by hunter-gatherers. Maybe these people weren't simple hunters. Maybe they were heirs of a lost world, preserving fragments of ancient knowledge. Egyptian priests claimed their knowledge was transmitted from time immemorial. They spoke of kings who ruled thousands of years, of gods who walked among men. Traditionally, this is dismissed as mythology, but what if these are distorted memories? Real people possessing extraordinary knowledge, seeming divine to less advanced contemporaries. Their longevity exaggerated in retelling, but memory of their wisdom preserved. The Sumerian king list describes kings who ruled tens of thousands of years before the flood. After the flood, reign durations become more realistic. This structure is common to many ancient texts. Mythological era, then flood, then history. The dividing line, before and after. The flood. A universal theme appearing in Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, India, China, both Americas, Australia, Polynesia. Geographically isolated cultures tell similar stories. Great water covers the earth. Few survive on boats or mountains. The world begins anew. Geological evidence of massive floods exists. Glacial lake outbursts, when melting glaciers created enormous water bodies held by ice dams. When dams failed, volumes of water unimaginable in scale were released. Channeled glacial scablands rushed through landscapes, changing geography in days. The Black Sea was possibly a freshwater lake. Then the Mediterranean broke through the Bosphorus, and salt water poured in, raising the lake level hundreds of meters, flooding coastal settlements. This occurred about 7,500 years ago, just when agriculture appeared in the region. People living along shores had days, maybe weeks, to watch rising water before their homes disappeared. Such an event observed by an entire region would enter cultural memory as the flood. Similar events occurred globally at the Ice Age's end. Memory of these catastrophes transmitted orally, becoming myths of great floods. But if the catastrophes are real, maybe the civilization destroyed by them is also real. We're accustomed to thinking of progress as linear and inevitable. But nature doesn't follow lines. Nature is cyclical. Seasons, lunar phases, precession of equinoxes, cycles within cycles. The ancients understood this. Their myths speak of yugas, eons, world ages. Each age ends with cataclysm and begins anew. Maybe they knew what we've forgotten, that civilizations rise and fall not once but many times. Let's look at this from another angle. Forget for a moment about lost civilizations. Focus on something more concrete, more tangible, the acoustic properties of ancient structures. Because here begins something truly strange. Many megalithic temples and chambers possess unusual acoustic characteristics, not accidental, but intentionally designed. Newgrange in Ireland, the chamber is tuned to a resonant frequency of about 110 Hz. When sound of this frequency is produced inside, the walls vibrate, creating an effect physically felt by the body. The Hypogeum of Halsafliani in Malta, an underground temple carved into rock about 5,000 years ago. Research shows sound waves of this frequency affect the human brain. Brain scans demonstrate exposure to sounds around 110 Hz alters activity in the prefrontal cortex, areas linked to language, mood, empathy. Activity switches from left hemisphere to right. This can induce altered states of consciousness, trance-like experiences. Ancient builders knew this, created chambers for rituals using sound to induce spiritual experiences. Shamanic traditions globally use rhythmic drumming, chanting, sounds to achieve trance. The frequency of drum beating is often around 110 Hz. Coincidence or empirical discovery that certain frequencies alter consciousness? In the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the acoustics of the king's chamber are also unusual. The empty granite sarcophagus, when struck, resonates at a specific frequency. The chamber amplifies certain frequencies, creating standing waves. Sound experiments inside the chamber show singing or instruments at certain frequencies create intense vibrations. Was the chamber used for sound rituals? Initiation ceremonies where priests lay in the sarcophagus, surrounded by sound, experiencing altered states? No written records survived, but the architecture hints at use beyond a simple tomb. Stonehenge, the acoustic properties of the stones. The blue stones, transported over 200 kilometers from Wales, possess unique sound qualities. When struck, they ring like bells, each stone with a unique tone. This is called lithophones, music of stones. Some researchers suggest Stonehenge was not only an astronomical observatory, but a sound temple where stones were used to create music and rituals. The configuration of stones also affects sound propagation. Acoustic studies show inside the circle, sound is amplified. Outside, it's muffled. This creates an intimate acoustic space for ceremonies. Words spoken inside the circle are heard clearly by all participants, but don't spread far beyond. Ancient builders understood acoustics in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. They manipulated space, materials, geometry to control sound. Why was this important? Because sound was a tool for rituals, for communication, possibly for altering consciousness. Modern science explores using sound for healing. Ultrasound destroys kidney stones. Directed sound waves treat tumors. Binaural beats alter brain waves, affecting mood and cognitive functions. The ancients could have empirically discovered similar effects, experimented with different frequencies, noticed influence on health, emotions, consciousness, transmitted this knowledge as sacred, restricted to priestly castes. When traditions died, knowledge was lost. But the stones remained, silent witnesses to sophisticated understanding. This returns us to the central question: how deep was ancient knowledge? Modern science tends to dismiss ancient wisdom as superstition, mythology, primitive attempts to explain the world without scientific method. But what if the ancients knew things through direct observation, experiments, thousands of years of accumulated experience, knowledge that worked even if theoretical understanding differed from ours? Traditional Chinese medicine has used acupuncture for thousands of years. Western medicine dismissed this as charlatanism until recently. Now research confirms acupuncture is effective for certain conditions. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but the effect is real. Ancient Chinese physicians didn't know nervous systems in modern terms, but they mapped meridians, points that when stimulated produce specific effects. This is empirical knowledge refined through centuries of practice. Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, describes principles of diet, herbal treatment, surgery that work. Ancient Indian surgeons performed cataract operations, reconstructive nose surgery, even lithotomy, removal of bladder stones. Techniques described in texts dated more than 2,000 years ago. Herbs used in traditional medicines globally often contain active compounds isolated by modern pharmacology. Aspirin from willow bark, digitalis from foxglove, quinine from cinchona bark, morphine from opium poppy. Ancient healers didn't know molecular structures but knew which plants treated pain, fever, infections, heart problems. This knowledge was transmitted orally, refined through experiments, sometimes written down. Much was lost, but fragments survived, and modern science is rediscovering their value. What else did the ancients know? We've discussed astronomical cycles, but there are subtler things. Bees use Earth's magnetic field for navigation. Birds, too. Humans have magnetoreception, ability to sense magnetic fields, though weak. Ancient mariners, spending lives on the ocean, could have developed heightened sensitivity to subtle signals, magnetic anomalies, underwater currents, changes in wave patterns. Polynesian navigators describe a sense of direction not dependent on visible cues. They sense the boat's movement, wave direction, even when they can't see stars. This isn't mysticism, it's developed proprioception, sensitivity to acceleration, rotation, ability to integrate these sensations into a mental map. Training begins in childhood, refined through decades of practice. Observation of natural patterns, another area where ancients exceeded us. Indigenous farmers know their land's microclimates, understand interactions between plant species, pest cycles, signs of weather change. This knowledge encoded not in books but in practice, transmitted through demonstration and experience. When traditional societies are disrupted, this knowledge is lost. The younger generation moves to cities, adopts modern methods. Elders die, taking centuries of observations with them. Anthropologists rush to document dying languages, traditions, but much is already lost. Indigenous Australians had detailed knowledge of edible plants, water sources, navigation through seemingly featureless deserts. Their songlines, mythological journeys of ancestors, were also navigational maps, encoded in songs and stories. To walk a songline meant traveling through landscape using landmarks described in song. The system was so sophisticated it spanned the entire continent. But with colonialism, population displacement, interruption of cultural transmission, many songlines are lost. Landscape memory, existing tens of thousands of years, disappeared within a century. This pattern repeats globally. Modernization brings benefits, medicine, education, technology, but also costs, loss of traditional knowledge, connection to land, understanding of natural cycles. We live in a world where most people are completely disconnected from food production, understanding of weather, knowledge of stars. If global infrastructure collapses, power grid failure, supply chain disruption, mass migrations, modern society isn't capable of self-sufficiency. Ancient societies were fragile in some senses, vulnerable to disease, famine, attack, but also resilient. Collapse of centralized power didn't mean complete knowledge loss. People could continue living using traditional skills. Modern society, conversely, is extremely fragile. We depend on systems, electricity, internet, global trade. When disrupted, they cause cascading failures. Few people have skills for survival without these systems. If civilization collapses now, how much knowledge would be lost? Almost everything digital would disappear. Without electricity, no computers, no internet, no access to data libraries. Books would survive, but who would preserve them? In collapse's chaos, libraries burn, paper is used for kindling, knowledge is lost. Through a few generations, survivors remember fragments, stories about what was before, distorted in retelling. Flying machines become dragons, skyscrapers become giants' towers, internet becomes magic mirror showing distant lands. The next civilization rising from ruins would find our remnants. Concrete structures eroded by time, metal artifacts corroded and unrecognizable, plastic degraded by sun and water into microparticles. They'd try reconstructing our civilization from these fragments and perhaps conclude we were primitive, incapable of great feats, because the most impressive aspects of our civilization, technology, knowledge, culture, existed in fragile forms that don't survive catastrophe. This is a mirror reflecting our situation with the ancients. We look at remnants, stones, artifacts, text fragments, and conclude primitiveness. But what if we're seeing only shards? What if the most impressive aspects of their civilization disappeared without trace? I'm not talking about electricity or computers, but perhaps sophisticated social structures, oral traditions, empirical knowledge that worked but wasn't recorded in ways surviving millennia. The Great Pyramid is impressive not because it's all the Egyptians could do, it's impressive because it survived. How many more structures were plundered for stone, destroyed by time, erased? How many texts were lost when Alexandria's library burned? We know about the catalog, nearly 500,000 scrolls, but most contents are unknown, vanished forever. When the fire died, countless knowledge collected over centuries turned to ash. Historians weep over lost works of Aristotle, lost plays of great dramatists, scientific treatises, mathematical breakthroughs. But besides titles and brief references, nothing remains. Imagination must fill the gaps. Similarly, with ancient civilizations before writing. Their achievements aren't recorded. Their knowledge isn't preserved in texts, but this doesn't mean knowledge didn't exist. Oral traditions can preserve complex information with surprising accuracy. Aboriginal Australians maintained songlines for tens of thousands of years. Geological events occurring more than 7,000 years ago are described in stories. Flooding of coastal lands, island formation. Geologists confirm the stories are accurate. This means cultural memory can extend further than we think. If oral tradition can preserve geological events 7,000 years, why not technological knowledge? The answer? It can, but it's fragile. Each transmission risks distortion. Without writing, there's no way to verify accuracy. Over time, details are lost, replaced, mythologized. Stone processing technique becomes legend of a master who could speak to stones, making them obey. Astronomical knowledge becomes story of heroes traveling through heavens. The core of truth remains, but wrapped in layers of myth. Archaeologists and historians learn to find this core, separate historical facts from mythological embellishments, sometimes successfully. Troy was once considered pure myth until Heinrich Schliemann excavated it. The flood in Gilgamesh is linked to real Mesopotamian floods, but the process is complex, controversial, often uncertain. And there's always risk of dismissing real history as myth because it sounds too incredible. Which leads to the uncomfortable question: how many myths we dismiss actually contain truth? Plato's Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, Shambhala. These names trigger eye-rolling from scientists. Pseudo-historical fantasies born from 19th century occult movements. But what if a core of truth exists? Not literal sunken continents with magical technologies, but real cultures lost in catastrophes, mythologized in memory. Plato's Atlantis is described with surprising specificity. Dimensions of the capital, concentric canals, agricultural system. Too detailed for pure invention. Many researchers suggest Plato based it on real history, possibly of Minoan civilization on Crete destroyed by Thera's eruption, or coastal cities flooded after catastrophes. Historical core embellished with philosophical allegory. If so, we shouldn't dismiss myth entirely. We should seek the historical grain. Lemuria and Mu, names coined in the 19th century to explain biogeographical puzzles. Scientists noticed similarities between species on different continents and postulated sunken land bridges. When plate tectonic theory explained this through continental drift, scientific need for Lemuria disappeared. But the name remained, captured by occultists, theosophists, fiction writers. They populated Lemuria with advanced races, lost technologies, esoteric wisdom, all invention. But beneath fantasy might lie real cultural memories of flooded lands. Sundaland, massive territory of Southeast Asia now underwater. During the Ice Age, this was land connecting Indonesia, Malaysia, Borneo. Fertile plains, rivers, forests, ideal location for human settlements. Then ice melted, sea rose, land disappeared. Millions of square kilometers of potential archaeological sites now under tens of meters of water and sediment. If complex societies existed there, we'll never know without massive underwater excavations. And that's expensive, technically difficult, dangerous. A few expeditions found anomalies, geometric forms on the seafloor, possible structures, but insufficient for definitive conclusions. Years of work needed, millions in funding, and academic community is reluctant to invest in speculative searches for lost civilizations when there's no solid evidence to begin with. It's a vicious circle. No evidence because no excavations. No excavations because no evidence. Meanwhile, oceans guard their secrets, and each year erosion, currents, human activity destroy what remains. Time works against us. The longer we wait, the less survives for discovery. But let's return to concrete mysteries we can see, touch, measure, to things whose existence is undeniable even if explanations elude us. The true lesson from all these ancient mysteries isn't about specific technologies or lost civilizations. It's something deeper, more personal. It's about the fragility of knowledge, about how easily everything we take for granted can vanish, about how thin the line is between civilization and chaos. The ancients weren't primitive. They were people exactly like us. Same intelligence, same creativity, same determination. They solved problems with available resources, accumulated knowledge across generations, created wonders we still can't fully comprehend. And perhaps in this lies the real message they left us. Not in the specific techniques of stone cutting or astronomical calculation, but in the reminder that we're not the first, and we won't be the last. That civilizations rise and fall like waves on an endless ocean. That what seems permanent today might be ruins tomorrow. That knowledge, once lost, may take millennia to recover. We stand at our own crossroads now. Our civilization has reached heights the ancients could only dream of. We've split the atom, walked on the moon, decoded the genome, connected the entire world through invisible networks. But we've also created new fragilities. We depend on systems so complex that their failure could cascade globally within days. Climate change, resource depletion, ecological collapse. These aren't distant threats. They're happening now. And if we don't act with wisdom, future generations will inherit a diminished world. They'll look at our remnants and wonder how we could have known so much, yet done so little. The ancient stones stand in silence, waiting. They've watched civilizations come and go. They'll watch ours too. The question is, what mark we'll leave? Will future archaeologists see us as wise stewards or reckless consumers? Will they marvel at our achievements or mourn our failures? The choice is ours. Every choice we make, every action we take, becomes part of the story that continues long after we're gone. The ancients understood this. They built for eternity, created messages in stone that would outlast empires. They knew something we're forgetting, that true greatness isn't measured in wealth or power, but in what you leave behind for those who come after. So as you lie here in the darkness, as your breath slows and sleep approaches, carry this with you. The knowledge that you're part of an endless chain stretching back to the first humans who looked at stars and wondered, and forward to descendants who will stand where you stood, asking the same questions. You're not just a consumer of history, you're a creator of it. Every day you choose what kind of ancestor you'll be. Every moment you decide what knowledge to preserve, what wisdom to transmit, what world to build. The ancient mysteries aren't just puzzles to solve. They're mirrors reflecting our own choices back at us. They ask, will you build for a season or for centuries? Will you take without thought or give with purpose? Will you be remembered as one who understood the fragility of it all, or one who ignored the warnings written in stone? Let these questions drift with you into sleep. Let them shape your dreams. And when you wake, perhaps you'll see the world differently. Perhaps you'll recognize that every act of creation, every moment of teaching, every choice to preserve rather than destroy is your own message to the future. The stones will stand long after we're dust, but the choices we make now will echo through them. Make them worth remembering. Sleep now. Let the ancient mysteries settle into your mind like sediment in deep water. Let them become part of you. And tomorrow, when you open your eyes to a new day, carry this awareness with you. That you live in the brief space between past and future, and what you do with that space matters more than you know. The ancients are watching through their stones. The future is watching through possibilities not yet born. And you stand between them, a bridge across time, carrying the light of consciousness forward. Rest well, seeker of mysteries. Dream of stone and stars, of lost wisdom and future hope. Dream of a world where knowledge isn't lost but cherished, where civilizations build for millennia, not quarters, where humanity finally learns the lessons written in ancient stone. Good night. Sleep deeply. And wake tomorrow ready to be the ancestor your descendants will thank. The builder, the preserver, the one who remembered when others forgot. The one who understood that the greatest technology isn't in the tools we create, but in the wisdom to use them well. Good night.